Okay, hi everyone. My name's Anisa Sanusi, and you can find me on Twitter because I'm like a huge social media person. Right, so today I'll be talking about user interface art and user experience design and what this means. So hi again. My name's Anisa. Video games UI and UX is something that not a lot of people are very aware of, because when you go into university, they kind of pigeonhole you into specific roles like artist or programmer or designer, which are actual roles and they do exist, but there's also other things that exist like production, voiceover, sound designer, composers, and UI UX, which is what I'm representing today. So just a little bit background of me. My name, God, I keep saying my name. I'm from Malaysia, which is halfway across the world. And growing up there, we had a lot of influences from both East and West. So growing up, I was a huge anime, manga fan, but also I loved Western stuff like the X-Men and Archie comics and things like that. So I had a good mashup of things I wanted to do. But similar to what Catherine said, like all games come from Japan. So I assumed that I needed to learn Japanese. I needed to be like a complete, we call it like a weeboo, to be like, I'm going to go to Japan. I'm going to marry a Japanese guy. I'm going to have Japanese babies and make Japanese games. That was my track. Like my father was like, oh God, I'm going to have like a Japanese son-in-law. How do I deal with this? But eventually, though, as I grew up, I learned about all the different kinds of games, and these are just a few that I kind of picked out like, at the top of my head, but clearly I've been playing, I played a lot when I was younger. My brother owned the PS1, the Sega Mega Drive, the Game Boy, everything my dad would buy for them, but I would kind of like take ownership of them. I would kind of steal them, put it in my room, or like, and they'd be like, yo, where's the PSP? And I'm like, oh, Anisa's got it. I'm like, shh, just playing in the corner. So yeah, growing up, I'm pretty much a massive nerd, and my parents, I told them that I wanted to be a comic artist in Japan. Like, that's a feasible thing. So my parents were like, okay, look, we know you like art, so we're going to compromise. We'll find something to do with art, but you can make money out of. So they did the research, actually, my parents, wow. So they're like, okay, why don't you go into animation? Because we heard that, in animation you get paid a lot and you can do stuff for Disney and Pixar. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And, I can draw. So I was like, okay, this is a good compromise. As long as you're not sending me to, like, architecture school or something. I mean, I love architecture, but my mom's an architect, by the way. So which is why, she's a little bit bummed out that I'm not following her footsteps. But thankfully, she's quite supportive of my creative dreams. And this is basically where I started off. So back in Malaysia, I studied diploma in digital animation, and that's where I learned all my foundation in art. So we did live drawing, we did still life, we did 3D art, 2D art, everything that you could think of, we did it, I did it. And I got pretty bummed out for a long time because in secondary school, I was the art person. I was the arty-farty person. Like, if they needed something to be drawn or designed, they would come to me, and I had that huge confidence boost. But coming to university, everyone's the art person, and then suddenly you have this like existential crisis of like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? Like, my classmate is way better than me. This person, they can model things way better than me. This person, she can do concept art better than me. Everyone is better than me. And I was like, so for a long time, I struggled with like, what am I good at? I don't know. But I persevered, and during my final year of uni, I realized that 3D wasn't a thing for me. Like, it was a thing for a lot of people, but for me personally, it was difficult. Like, me and 3D didn't gel as much as I loved 3D. 3D didn't love me back. Oh, it's a one-way love story. But anyway, so I did my final year project in 2D animation, and then from then on, I went into the animation industry. So my first job right after uni was doing 2D animation for ads, the one down there is actually a art installation. So we animated animals playing brass band musical instruments, and then we put it up on a massive, like in a park, and then people could walk through, and it's like as if like a real band is playing, but they're actually animated animals. It's kind of cute. Yeah, and then in the same company, I did some comics for them, and then we did some advertising animation. So it was a lot of different things, and it was very artsy-fartsy, and it was great. But I had a problem, me personally, because I'm Malaysian, so I'm not from here, so that means I need a visa to work in the country. And 2D animation at the time wasn't a high demand in the UK. So I needed to kind of rejig my my skill set, you know. So, but I wanted to stay in the creative industry. I wanted to stay in animation or in video games or something like that. So what happened was one of the job vacancies that I got a hold of was a 2D artist for a video games company. And so far, my portfolio has been basically 2D animation, where I'm just like, I'm going to work for Disney, I'm going to work for Ghibli, I'm going to work for, you know, these people. But that's a whole different kind of battle that I wasn't winning at the time. However, in university, I was friends with a few game development students, and one of them was a programmer, and we made this game here, which is called Blackjack 21, and also Steve the Starfish there. So he programmed everything, and I did the art. So this was his final year project, and also this was like a side project that we kind of just made together. And he's currently working as a programmer in Ubisoft, and I'm always bragging like, yeah, I got you that job. Yeah, if you didn't have my art, nobody will look at you. And he was like, yeah, I know, shush. I was like, so yeah, he owes me his job. But the funny thing is, it worked both ways, because I've got game stuff in my portfolio, and I never use this as like a main thing to show off to people, but it helps me get my foot into the door, basically. So from then on, everything that I learned was kind of transferable into 2D art in video games. So yeah, I'm in games now, and this right here, Pros and Synapse, is my very first published title, and it was a PS Vita game. It was also the first game that I knew what UI was, user interface, because in that company, we only had, the art team was 3 people strong. That's really small. So we had 1 concept artist, 1 3D modeler, and 1 2D artist, which is me. And I assumed that I'll be doing like, I don't know, 2D assets and icons and stuff, which is true. But then what I didn't realize was I was doing a lot of UI design. So from that first job, I had to basically relearn everything that I even knew now from scratch. So I looked up on the internet, what is UI? Ooh, you know, and then I used to love a lot of graphic design stuff and typography and iconography and all those things. And it happened to be really useful now. So my art background did help. I still draw stuff now, but it's more of a hobby and kind of like it because then I can draw for fun and for the love of it. But also I get that creative satisfaction at work because I'm doing something that has form and function. It's like, it's not just a pretty picture, you know, it's useful in a game setting. So as you can see, I've done a few different platforms. So I've done stuff on the PS Vita, on the PC, on mobile, Xbox, and yeah. So these are the stuff that is more well known. I've done maybe 4 or 5 other games that never got never got published, or it was cancelled, because that's just how game dev works. You know, you have loads of I wouldn't say fails, but just things that didn't get off. There never fails, you know. Sure, there might be commercial failures, but it's still experience in your portfolio. It's still something that you've worked on. Some of my best work that I love until now is not published, and I still keep it in my portfolio. I still show it to people, not online, because we do have contracts and non-disclosure agreements, so we can't show it off publicly, but I can always show it off to like an interviewer or to a friend or something, because, you know, it's still my work. So these are some of the UI stuff that I've done. This is the mobile game called Tales from Deep Space, and that was the first game that I was the only UI artist, and that was also one of the first few games that I had complete UI UX design control over. And that's Elite Dangerous. Okay, you see this entire cockpit here? It's one of the most complicated things I've ever seen being built. My sole contribution was this teeny tiny line here. That is me. And it just goes, you know. And then if you drop your heat signature, it goes flat line. That was me. That was my entirety. And also I did logo design there. So I didn't do any of it. These are all like amazing artists, people like other more talented people than me. But I just did that, and I'm like, yay, I love this stuff. So that's the PS Vita game that I worked on the first time. So, and also my first mobile title here, which was the old Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 game, which was a PC game, but we ported it into mobile. Do you know how hard it is to port a 10-year-old game from like a click interface to a touch interface that is like that tiny? It's difficult. God, I'm pretty sure I lost a few friends through this phase because like there's a lot of swearing and stuff. But we persevered and we released it. People liked it, so whew. And I think my most well-known game that I've worked on is Planet Coaster. This one I could never ever dare to take credit by myself because this is the biggest UI team that I've worked with. We had 3 programmers and 3 designers, and that's like 6 people. And most games have maybe 1 or 2. So this was a big project. So everything you see on the screen, like this stuff, I did all this. Just saying. But you know, all this, they're all collaborative, and I could never say like, oh yeah, I did icon. Sure, I did. But then we iterated on it from between 4 or 5 different people. So it's always, it's a team player thing. Right. So I should probably say what UI is. So UI is basically the menus and the stuff that you see on screen, HUD, health bars, and things like that. It's more of the visual development, and you kind of work with the art director a lot more closely. And also, it's more pixel pushing. You know, you kind of getting it pixel perfect, and you make sure the animation feels right, and you make sure everything's coherent. So you make style guides and things like that. So this is like a whole side of 2D art that they don't really show in universities or anywhere else, to be honest, because it's less glamorous than, say, concept art, where you create really great characters or environments. Like, oh, wow, look at a landscape, look at a world building, it's great. And I'm like, but you can't really play a game without UI, can you? So, you know, and don't forget us. Yeah, so it's just stuff like that, you know. Even stuff like, if you look at this pointer, it's so iconic. You know it for a fact that it's a Final Fantasy pointer. You can even hear the bling, bling, bling when you press. So that's all UI. You know, it's sound design, but also part of UI. So you work with sound designers, you work with art directors to make sure it's like a cohesive style, and yeah, but somebody has to design all of this. And back in the old days, game designers did it. But now, we have user experience people, and this is kind of something that I kind of started doing in the last year or 2. So it's more about, it's almost like game design, but specifically for the UI. It's actually different from game design, I shouldn't say this. So it's more about planning. So this is the front screen of, there's the main menu of Planet Coaster, right there. So this is like from the beginning of when you start the game, and then you onboard it. So like, okay, so for the first screen that the players see, like, do they see a tutorial? Do they see like a welcome screen? So, you know, and then we've got like, okay, so if the player has already logged in, so what happens? It goes there, and if they haven't, what happens? It goes there. And it's all planning. So, and then you go into the screen. Okay, so what do you see? You see like the play button, you see the globe, and you see the community, you see the player profile. And then if you click that, what happens? If you click that, what happens? You click that, what happens? So it's a lot of planning. And that's just the front screen. So if you go into the actual game inside, so we have like, this was a placeholder that we took from another game before we had like an actual game, as the artists and programmers are still working on it. We're planning, okay, so we have like a big menu screen. Where does it live at the bottom? Does it live at the top? Should we have all the right side about building and on the left side about this and that, you know? So okay, this is a lot of like just throwing stuff at the wall because it's so early in the game. But we still need someone to plan this. Oh my god, I'm sorry. Ah! Okay. Also, we use whiteboards and Post-its. Post-its are like godsend. I love them. So, okay. In Planet Coaster, we do have like a bottom bar where this is the coaster builder, where how you build your roller coaster. So we got all this stuff there, and it's a lot of user testing, and it's a lot of like just seeing how people work. And then we like, okay, this isn't working. So we try to figure out the flow of like, okay, so when you build a roller coaster, what do you do? First, you pick a type of coaster, and then you go down and say, okay, so after you pick a type of coaster, you pick a station. You put the station down. And then after put the station down, then what? Do you edit the station, or do you add tracks, or do you... So a lot of those user flows, as we say, we kind of plan them out. And then this is like the screen space. So this is the roller coaster, and this is like what the UI would look like when you're doing certain tasks. And this is like the other UI element somewhere else. And then we jig about, and then we discuss, and then we try to build it again. So this is between Alpha 1 and Alpha 2, which is very different. And the game now is released. So we had Alpha 1, Alpha 2, Alpha 3, Beta, and then release. So can you imagine how many times we had to reiterate something over and over? But all of that is UX design. So it's all about usability, to make sure that people can actually use it. I mean, it's useless if it's pretty, but you can't use it. And it's also about making sure people know where to find information and what to click without actually literally in their face, click this. I mean, sure, for tutorials, sometimes you kind of have to do that, but we need to be as intuitive as possible. The thing with UI, UX is that if somebody notices what you do, then you kind of slightly failed. If nobody notices, then that means you've done a good job, because we're not the main characters in video games. We're like the supportive characters, where we're just like, hey, look at this pretty environment, look at this pretty thing, look at this game mechanic that you're supposed to enjoy. We just facilitate that experience, you know? So we're trying to make it as the least painful experience that you can get through UI, so that you can enjoy gameplay, because the designers work so hard to make the game look, balance good and feels good and da-da-da. So that is what UX is. So if you want to go into UI or UX, so I'm just going to go through the UI list first. Passion. Passion is the number one thing. No matter what it is that you want to apply for, we have to make sure that you actually want to be here, because when we get applicants, I see quite a lot of 2D artists or concept artists who apply for UI jobs for the sake of it, in the sense that, I can't get a concept artist job, but I can draw, I can do 2D art, so I'll do this. Admittedly, that was my first foot in the door as well, but I also did a lot of research beforehand before applying somewhere. So I think the people who hired me knew that I had a passion for UI, specifically UI, and didn't treat it as like a fallback if I couldn't do something else. And it became a passion now. I'm advocating UI and UX to everybody, in the sense that, hey, this is something, you probably never heard of this, but it's something that you might do, and we're always looking for people to fill these roles, just because they're less popular in comparison to like, game art or game design. So with UI, as I said, it's more graphic design skills, sense of timing and animation, foundation in art, and also taste in finding inspiration outside of video games. That means looking at apps, looking at movies. If you watch, Guardian of the Galaxies, or any sci-fi movie, you see all this, FUI, we call them FUI, F-U-I, which is fantasy user interface. And you see, wow, that is cool. How did they do that, So you kind of, you have to look outwards to apply things into your video game, because UI design is everywhere. In app design, in software, in web design, it's already there. If you could apply that to your video game, that'd be great. And with UX, it's a lot of talking to people. So talking to designers, talking to programmers, it's talking to people and talking to users, actually, because you're constantly user testing. It's like just asking the right questions. It's more, you can't be like, so what's wrong with the game? You can't really ask that. It's more like, so how do you feel when you play this game? Or how do you feel when you're trying to do X or Y and Z? And then they'll be like, oh, I find it difficult because I couldn't find this button. And be like, oh, okay, so there's a pain point there, and we need to address that. So a sense of empathy, because we do have to design for different kinds of people. Not everyone's like you. And sometimes the game that you're making isn't necessarily, you are not the audience for that game, someone else is. So you kind of have to put your shoes in their position. So currently, my job at Hutch, we make car games, racing games on mobile. And a lot of our demographic is actually 18 to 35-year-old male, and I am not male. But I've got enough friends, and I talk to them, and I say, oh, okay, so why would you choose this car over this car, for this race? And like, what kind of information do you look for? So I've learned a lot about 0 to 60 miles speed, or different tires, or like different ground, different weather, how it impacts your cars and all that. I don't care because I'm not a motorhead, but I care enough to make sure these details are present and that people who play the game can find it easily so that they enjoy the game. Because you know what? They're my users, they're my players. So I'm facilitating this game for them. If they like it, then great. That's my job done. So yeah, and analytical design thinking and thoughts of form functions behind decisions. You cannot just do something for the heck of it. Like, if you put a button there, someone will be like, why is it there? And you can't be like, because I couldn't put it there. So no, you have to be like, oh, because, on the screen, if you're holding it with one thumb, your thumb's area is just on the bottom right. So that's why that specific button is there. Or if it's, there's every game has a template that they follow, like profile picture is always on the top left, so you put it there. So at least you have a reason for it rather than just randomly putting stuff on it. So, right, so you might ask, what about coding? I mean, it's great, but as Lizzie mentioned a while ago, there's loads of programmers who specialize in all types of programming, like UI, AI, or gameplay. So there's people who do this for you. I mean, it's great for you to have a bit of understanding so that you can guide programmers about what you want them to do specifically, or at least know your limits, because not everything you design could be made, especially in a very tight time frame. And what I mean by unicorns is that unicorns is a person who's really good at art, design, and coding, and, community managing, social media, and everything. It's great if you want to be one, but you really do need to specialize into what you're actually passionate about. Because if you're trying to spread yourself too thin, then you become good at nothing. And then we wouldn't know where to put you in a games company, because we need someone strong at something. Strong at there's a thing called the T shape, where you're really deep down strong in one area, but you're also knowledgeable in everything else. So choose that one strong area, make sure you shine in that, and then learn everything else as well so that you can facilitate with everyone else that you're working in a team, because it's always a team thing. So, you know what? Just make a game, I guess. If you remember my university friend, he just needed an artist, and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I've actually graduated at that point. He was a year below me, but I thought it would be a good opportunity, so we collaborated, and that propelled my both our careers into video games. And then there's also game jams, things like that, just anything. There's free tools online that you can just download and just start making stuff. In fact, if you have Photoshop, you can just start mocking up some screens, just make some UI. Doesn't matter if it's actually useful or not, just make some stuff up. Or make icons, make logos, make some kind of design thing. Just make something and fill up that portfolio, because when you apply for somewhere, a lot of students will ask me a junior position needs 1 to 3 years experience, but I don't have experience. I just graduated. What do I do? I'm like, well, yeah, this is your experience. Your uni work, your stuff outside of work, your game jams, your hobby, everything, that is experience. Just because you don't have actual work experience doesn't mean, we're not going to look at you. We'll ignore you if you don't have a portfolio of work, because then you're not, we can't judge you how well you are at your craft. So yeah, just make stuff. Don't even worry how good it is or not at this point. The quality will follow the quantity, basically. So I made that up, but it's kind of true actually, because it's UI and UX is such a because back in the old days. back in the old days, I'm not that old, it's always game designers or concept artists, people, whoever that was in the team would just pick up this kind of work. But now we've got specialized people to do it, and we are, we're very gung-ho. We're just like, yeah, I'm the best person to do this job. Yeah, let me do it. When someone comes to me like, hey, Anisa, can you do this? Like, yeah, don't worry, I'll do it. You chill out, and I'll take care of this. I got this. So it becomes a thing that you can own. Again, back to my university days when it's not really a glamorous thing to think about, because everyone wants to be a concept artist, environment artist, game designer. It's great, but you also need me. So thank you very much. You have time?
I'll take one question just while I switch the slides. So,
can I just play my
Oh yes, the video. Yes.
Yeah. So I've got a UI show reel just to show you what my show reel looked like 2 years ago in 2015.
Sorry, it's my fault. Any questions? One question, and then we'll send it over to the panel.
Hey.
What are your plans for the future?
Oh, world domination. Well, not really. It's more about, I'm actually looking into more diversity and advocacy for oh God, my words are jumbled up. Advocacy for diversity in video games, because in terms of job diversity, people didn't know that UI UX existed. And at the same time, people keep thinking that video games is very specifically for nerds or like that, and that's not true. In UI, UX, we get loads of applicants who are not in games, people who do graphic design, people who do print, people who do this and that, and we welcome all kinds of applicants. And you know what? I really support that cross-pollination between industries, because I go to UX events where there's people from Facebook, Google, whatever. They don't make games, but we're in the tech industry. We're still in tech, Or with the BAFTAs, I'm part of the BAFTA crew. We meet up with people from film or TV, and you know what? It's still a cross-pollination of creative industries. So I think it's more about opening up video games to everyone else, and also welcoming more people, especially girls or people of color who feel who might not feel like there's a place for them, but it really is. It really is. I mean, I'm both of those things. I'm a girl and I got melanin. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much.